Well, welcome to episode 21 of Power Up Podcast.
Oh, that's close.
You are so slow. Today we're talking about, or actually we're digging deep into the Paleo and Zone diet. Talking a little bit more, elaborating on last week's nutrition podcast. We're your hosts, Christopher.
CJ.
Gabo to
Christopher.
delicious luscious.
Delicious and luscious.
That's me.
Delicious lusciousness.
Can't get it at 7-Eleven.
So good.
So,
Sweet.
who's going to start?
So, last week we went pretty, well, we didn't go deep. We gave you a very real surface covering of a lot of the different diets. Paleo, ketogenic, macros, and what else?
Zone.
Zone, yeah, in the zone. So today we're going to kind of dive into paleo a little bit deeper, talk about what you can and can't have, why you can and can't have them, and what else, like just kind of those general good ideas for how to eat and what to eat when you're on paleo. So I think all of us have tried paleo at one point in time, right? That's kind of the starting point for CrossFit diets, right? Paleo is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not strict paleo right now, but paleo is...
Well, let's dig back into why is it called paleo? Chris, why is it called paleo?
Because it's caveman diet.
Okay, but
It's
why?
from the Paleolithic era. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Paleolithic. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't even say cinnamon, right? So
Cinnamon. An anemone.
An anemone.
Or yourself, kid.
like a synonym.
Aluminum.
You want some synonym rolls?
Hippopotamus.
Aluminium. Okay.
Hip hop anonymous.
But yeah, it's cool. From the Paleolithic era, it's kind of the idea was to eat like caveman ate, right? So the idea is that everything we're eating nowadays, these processed foods are bad for you. Just generally, you're eating bad stuff most of the time, which causes inflammation. So I don't know what you're doing.
Basically, you're just eating natural things.
Yeah.
They didn't have Walmarts and like 7-Elevens back then. You can't get a gas station hot dog back then.
They had Paleo 11.
Yeah.
No.
It's a dinosaur you chase down.
You're think about it like they were considered hunter gatherers. So like hunter, you're getting meat, protein, regardless of what it is, whether it's poultry, beef, wild game, and then gatherer. Oh, what do you gather? Like vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds. So that's pretty much it. Hunt and gather. You're trying to mimic that.
Yeah, the best you can. You gotta hunt at Safeway and gather at Whole Foods.
Right? So now when you go shopping, think about hunting and gathering.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't hunt and gather, you probably shouldn't eat it. Like Twinkies, you can't hunt or gather those, so don't eat those.
Yeah, so a good general rule of thumb, and we're going to get a little bit more specific, is if it lasts longer than 2 weeks, there is a good chance you probably shouldn't eat it. There are a few exceptions to these, but for the most part, that can be a generalized rule, where if it lasts longer than 2 weeks, it's probably bad for you, or you shouldn't eat it. So that's a good place to start. So if you're in the grocery store buying stuff, and you're like, I'm trying to decide what's good for me, and I have this long list of paleo yes and no's, ask yourself that question. If it lasts longer than 2 weeks, don't buy it. My brother also, he made this funny thing. I think he heard it somewhere, but he's like, if it has a face, you can eat it on paleo. So like if it had a face, you can eat it. You can get a little twisted with that because people have faces, but
This is going the wrong direction.
like animals, like a cow has a face, or a chicken has a face, fish has a face, fish face. But like if you really want to get technical, human meat is considered paleo. So. But we're not gonna dive
We're not promoting cannibalism here.
We're not. But we're just saying, if it has a face,
CrossFit mob cannibals.
you can eat it. So CJ is gonna dive into what we should not be eating when we're eating paleo, and then we'll talk about kind of why. So we'll talk about something and then say why.
Yes. So generally on paleo, the things you want to avoid, right? Dairy, your grains, your processed foods and sugars, those are your bad carbohydrates you're looking at right there. Legumes, starches, and alcohols. Starches are going to be like your potatoes. Your dairy obviously is your milk, your cheese. And actually, I have a slight disagreement here with dairy on the butter portion because I do like the butter on paleo diet as long as you don't overuse it. The grains, The biggest grain that often gets missed is corn. Corn is a grain. It is corn syrup, corn products. That's a big one that people think, oh, it's natural. It's corn. It's a vegetable. No, corn's a grain. Legumes. We're talking about your beans. Peanuts is a legume, so that falls into the legume category. So you want to avoid peanuts. It's actually not a nut. It's a legume. And like I said, starches. However, you can eat sweet potatoes, not regular potatoes. And alcohol, obviously. Alcohol is just sugar, basically. You know, you break it down to just sugar overall. It's carbohydrates. Yeah. It's made of grain.
It's just aged sugar.
Yeah.
Reason why on paleo we're not really allowed to have dairy. Well, Paleolithic people, caveman people, didn't really have the ability or probably the know-how to produce things like cheese, sour cream, yogurt.
Yeah, they weren't milking cows.
Milk, yeah, they probably didn't milk. If they did drink milk, it was
human milk,
breast milk.
Yeah, and it wasn't very long.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. So that's one of the reasons to avoid dairy. Another reason is, especially lactose intolerant people, but a lot of people don't have enough of the enzyme to properly break down dairy products. So dairy products are just associated with inflammation. They can cause stomach problems for a lot of people just because we don't have enough enzymes to properly break them down. Some people do. A lot of scientists believe that this is something that we have developed over time, and that's why you still have some people that are lactose intolerant, is because the ancient man didn't really have it in their diet. So some people have developed the proper enzymes to break down dairy and other people haven't. So that's why on paleo it's just kind of a general no, because these Paleolithic people weren't having too much dairy, if any at all.
From a performance standpoint, dairy tends to not help you out when you're working out. You get that mucusy feeling.
Yeah.
It's just going to really slow your breathing down, makes it hard to breathe during the workout. Also, for me, I was eating ketogenic pretty heavily there, and I was overdoing the cheese. And like I said in the last podcast, I had difficulty swallowing. I was overdoing cheese and sour cream, and I was like, well, it's it's part of the diet. I can have it because it's healthy fats, but it's not necessarily the best thing to eat from a performance standpoint.
No, and if you want to experiment with this, just eat a bunch of cheese or have a bunch of milk and come work out an hour and a half later.
You'll hate yourself.
You will understand why that's not a great idea. Next thing on the list, grains.
Yeah.
Why don't we want to have grains?
Grains, not gains.
Gains. Grain, GR. Yeah, you want gains, of course. These are grains, though. These are a little different than gains, and these actually don't promote gains. So, grains. Why don't we want grains?
Let's take that one, Christopher. Why don't we want grains in the paleo diet?
Grains, when it comes to digesting, let's just go with food in general. With the three different overall categories for paleo, these are the kind of things that you wouldn't find when you're out in the wild. These things are kind of like synthetic type of foods, such as corn. We talked about corn already, didn't we?
Yeah, well, a little bit. Well, I think the idea also is the ancient man didn't have the ability to farm or monocrop the way we do nowadays, right? So they didn't have the ability. I mean, they might have eaten some grains, right? But grains then were way different than grains are now. We've changed what they are fundamentally to suit what we do now with the supermarkets and mass producing products. So grains also you just don't break them down well. They promote inflammation in the joints. Like I said, they're not what they used to be. They've been kind of franken-fooded.
But I can hear everyone listening to the podcast going, well, what about whole grains? What about whole grains?
Healthy whole grains.
Yeah, right?
What about multigrain?
It's healthy for your heart. I thought I could eat Cheerios and lower my cholesterol. What the F?
What is a whole grain to begin with?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
Or what's inside of the multigrains?
It's BS is what it is.
Yeah.
It's BS. It's a marketing ploy so they can make you feel like you're eating healthier, but you end up doing that. You eat a bunch of Cheerios or what's it like a frosted mini wheats, thinking you're gonna be all right.
Frosted mini wheats, yeah.
Breakfast of champions.
Yeah, you eat your 9 whole grains, and it's not
delicious.
Really good for you. It's a promotion, man.
Yeah.
It's not. They're looking out for their own pockets. Not looking out for you.
Just think of it as if those grains are kind of like cardboard. It's not exactly something that you can digest and it can actually go through your bloodstream. It just kind of, if you ate cardboard, it's probably just going to go straight through you and it's going to pop out. So
Yeah, that's a very good point. You can eat cardboard, but I don't recommend eating cardboard.
yeah,
You know, similar to eating grains.
grains are like the same color also.
Yeah. Now this is if you wanted to have some grains on your cheat day, like some oatmeal on a Saturday morning or something like that. That's fine, but don't make it a regular staple of your diet.
Or if you're Mexican like my family, you have some tortillas.
Tortillas.
And well, basically you're having a burrito. So
Yeah, and I mean, if you're trying to stay healthy, they make, especially with paleo, like gluten is an absolute no in paleo. And they can, or you can get grains, you can get gluten-free oatmeal. Whole grains or grains are actually gluten-free naturally. It's just the stuff they usually add to them. Or like quinoa is a gluten-free whole grain, high in whole grain food. But yeah, on paleo specifically, we're not saying that whole grains are terrible for you, but they're just not allowed.
eggs are gluten free, by the way.
Eggs are gluten free. Good. All right, so grains, stay away from grains. Corn is a grain. You don't want corn. It's pretty much just like food sugar. It doesn't really do anything. It's like syrup.
And corn's in everything. So like when you go shopping, make sure you check out the labels of everything. You'll be surprised how much stuff corn is in. It's because it's so cheap to produce. They mass produce it. It's so cheap to produce. They give it back to the cows. It's like, hey man, we got too much of this stuff. That's how much corn we have.
Cows
we
be
too much of
grubbing
it. Cows be loving that corn.
Yeah, but it's also like grass-fed beef's way more expensive because it's healthier for the animals, and you want to avoid grain-fed animals because it doesn't produce good meat. It tastes totally different. You can tell the difference between your grain-fed beef and your grass-fed beef, and it tastes better grass-fed.
Well, that's an arguing point right there. Because some people would say like grain-fed beef tastes better, but that's because it's a sick animal. It's dying, so it's fattier. It's got a lot more fat content.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Whatever.
Just avoid it though.
Grass-fed's healthier.
Absolutely healthier.
So that's
Absolutely, 100%.
what we're looking for. All right. And when you're shopping, absolute no. Anything with high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
Whether or not it's paleo, this is a terrible thing that we put in our food to sweeten it up or make it more addictive or whatever it is.
It lasts longer on the shelf. That's the biggest thing. It lasts on the shelf much longer. That's why I use
high fructose corn syrup. And a lot of your condiments, it's the first ingredients. And it's things like jelly or jam. Ketchup or barbecue sauce or like anything that's sweet, like even like mayonnaise. Like high fructose corn syrup is in freaking everything. And it is terrible for you. Like carcinogenic. It pretty much is like death in a bottle.
When I went to this restaurant up at the Sand Dunes, we were just looking at all the like the ketchup bottles and stuff. We looked at how many calories they have. Like mustard doesn't even have any calories.
No, mustard's just mustard seed and vinegar, right? So.
Yeah, no. On paleo, you can have mustard.
I love mustard.
Yeah, you can have as much mustard as you want. It's pretty much just like seeds and vinegar.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to move on. Processed foods and
sugars.
sugars. Oh, man. This is my favorite category because this one pisses me off the most out of all of them because we'll get into it. But processed foods. What's considered, what can I do for you?
Metabolic window is not the processed food. It's not the freezer section at Walmart.
Yes, there is a freezer section. Processed food. What is a processed food? Like, what do we mean when we're saying processed food? That's weird. So let's talk about like, what is processed food? I don't know what that means. Like, if you're somebody that's like, I don't really know what processed food is. I just eat food. What is processed?
Let's Google that actually while we're sitting here.
Processed foods.
I would say it is probably when you take multiple different foods, you break them down and put them into one thing, right? That's what I would say is processed. It's broken down, preserved.
You're changing the natural kind of substance order that the food.
Yeah, so like a processed food, it's going to have like altered chemical makeup with different ingredients put in it. Usually the way that we can classify this is anything that has preservatives or an unnatural additive is considered a processed food. So if your food has added preservatives in it, processed. So anything that has preservatives is a no. So we can't have this processed food that has a preservative, and preservatives are the things that make your foods last longer. So you can have your dry foods that'll last like a year, or your chips or whatever that last like 6 months in your cabinet. That's because there's added preservatives or processed things in them that are going to make them or last
Natch.
natch.
They're all natch, man.
The natch.
So here's the definition to clear it up for you guys a little bit. It says the definition of what constitutes a processed food can vary slightly, but it usually refers to foods that are packaged in boxes, cans, or bags. In addition to going through many complex processing steps, processed foods often contain additives, artificial flavorings, and other chemical ingredients. So basically, you're eating things that shouldn't be eaten after like a week or two, like Gob said earlier. You're eating things that have been on the shelf for a very long time. They're lasting much longer than they would naturally. And that's because they've been processed. They've been put through this chemical process in order for them to last longer.
Yeah.
That's processed foods.
That's why processed foods are a no. So think about it like this. If you bought some ground beef and you kept it in your fridge for like 25 days, would you still eat it?
No.
Probably not.
Freezer, yes. But fridge, no.
This is different. So we're talking fridge.
How cold is your fridge?
So like, and your other food should be like this, and that's why processed foods are a no, is because the additives that they have in them. So whether it's a preservative or a certain ingredient that's in there, we're just not allowed to have it. So the next part of this is processed foods and sugars. What do we mean by sugar?
So go ahead. You want to go, Chris? Or you want me to take it?
You just go.
Okay, so the sugars we're even talking about some of your natural sugars too. Like people think, oh, it's an apple, it's a banana, it's healthy. I can eat these all day long, they're full of natural sugars. Yes and no, it's better than eating Twinkies, cupcakes, or Krispy Kremes, my favorite. But it's sugars. You want to avoid your sugars as much as possible. You can have some fruits, some vegetables that have sugars in them as well, carbohydrates or sugars. But avoid things that have added sugar. Avoid your sodas, your vitamin waters, your Gatorades. Avoid that stuff. It's all marketed as a healthy way to consume water or to get electrolytes, but not the best way to do it. It's got added sugar.
It's mostly just like sugar, water is what you're drinking. But the reason why we're avoiding sugar, we're going to talk about this one for probably a little bit because this is a huge one. So any processed sugars you want to avoid. So anything, so like white sugar's not naturally white. They bleach it, so that's a huge no. So like if your sugar is just white, like no, absolutely not. Even sugar in the raw. On Paleo, we're not eating sugar in the raw. Right? So we're not having that. The only things that are allowed on Paleo is fruit, but you need to watch your consumption because it's fructose and your body breaks it down similarly to sugar. The only good thing about fruit is that it's loaded with like nutrients and antioxidants. That's what you're getting from the fruit. That's good. The fructose isn't necessarily good for us. Our body breaks it down like sugar, so that's why we just want to limit your fruit intake.
Especially trying to lose some weight.
Yeah, especially trying to lose weight, just because fruit's an easy snack and you can eat a ton of it. So, you're sitting here eating like
bananas,
like 5 bananas and 3 apples a day. You're like, I'm being healthy. And it's like, you're not promoting weight loss or like a good state for your body to be in.
And this is why those juicing diets are BS too. They make you juice all these fruits and vegetables all day, juicing tons of fruits. Well, are you getting at that point is just the sugar. You're not even getting the good stuff for you. The pulp and everything else is what's good for you.
Yeah. So that's what I say with like certain fruits or vegetables. It's most of the nutrients are in like the outside. What's the word? Why am I thinking of this? The peel or like
the peel,
like things like the stuff like that. Even though like you don't eat that stuff, but it has a lot of the nutrients.
I ate orange pill once, just for kicks, and it tastes like toothpaste. It tastes like crap.
It probably tastes like crap.
Another reason you want to avoid sugars is because once you eat sugar, especially when you're eating a clean diet like a paleo diet, you eat sugar, all you're gonna want from then on is sugar. Like it is a drug, man. Sugar will have you wanting more and more sugar, just like crack. That's why you want to avoid it.
Studies show that sugar is more addictive than heroin.
Oh yeah, it's very addictive.
And genetically, or even looking at it from a standpoint of
evolutionarily, we're not meant to have it.
Evolutionarily, well, that and women actually crave sugar more than men, and it's been scientifically shown it's just the chemical makeup in their brain, and it's because of the way the Paleolithic people used to live is that the men would go out and hunt and women would gather. Usually that's the way it would work. So the men are out hunting, trying to get all of
bring home that bacon.
Yeah, your meat and the bacon, literally. And then women would gather, and they'd gather things like strawberries or cherries, things like that, and they're just eating a little bit more of that sweet stuff. And after a while, it develops this pattern in just the female species where they seem to just crave sugar a little bit more than males do. And there's studies that promote this that show that this is actually true. So I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. We're just talking about some scientific studies. So whether or not you believe it, that's up to you. But sugar, it's super addictive, super bad for your body. And cancer cells, their favorite thing to eat is sugar.
Yeah.
So if we want to promote growth of cancer cells, then we're going to put things in our body that have a lot of sugar in them. And in America, everything has a lot of sugar. Even fruit juice. If you have an 8-ounce glass of fruit juice, you're at like 40 grams of sugar, even if it's 100% fruit juice.
Yeah, and the recommended intake for a day for an adult is like what, 25 grams for the day of sugar, period.
Yeah.
Not even like just natural sugar. That's just all sugar, period.
Yeah.
So good luck, staying under that threshold if you beat that at breakfast time.
Yeah. So
You
we
wanna
want
join in?
to stay away. TC, what's up, brother?
See you guys.
All right, brother.
Oh, my bad, my front of the
You're good.
camera.
You're good.
Yeah.
You are, but that's fine.
No, you're cool. You're
Part
part
of the podcast now.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
good son, TC.
Can I get in?
Go ahead, for sure.
I'm burnt. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, right on. Well, we're just talking about nutrition
diet, yeah.
and sugar right now specifically.
now we're talking about
So sugar, stay away from sugar. Eating paleo in general, sugar is just terrible for you, but especially in paleo, limit your fruits. The other things that I get a lot of questions, it's artificial sweeteners. These are, so if I'm talking to somebody, artificial sweeteners are the biggest no out of anything that I'll say first. So it's like, if there's one thing I should cut out of my diet, what is it? And if you are putting a ton of artificial sweetener in your body, that's the first thing. So if you're like, oh, I drink diet soda, and I'm like, drink regular Coke. It's better for you. It is. So we have this illusion, or that was fed to us through media, that
Because 0 calories is
zero
better.
calories, low fat is good for you. And these ingredients that are used to make these products is actually way worse for you, way more carcinogenic. They promote cancer. There's study after study showing this. So artificial sweeteners, terrible. Your Splenda, your
Sucralose,
sucralose.
xylitol.
Yep, those, the freaking whatever the pink and the blue one are. So like all of those, terrible for you, absolutely terrible. If you eat artificial sweeteners right now, stop, like immediately stop, because you're pretty much, artificial sweeteners like smoking cigarettes. Like, you know it's killing you, but you just keep doing it. So stop doing it. Like, no artificial sweetener. If I talk to anyone that I come across or in this gym or anywhere and they're consuming artificial sweetener, my first reaction is stop, just stop. They're like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight. These actually promote weight gain. Your body reacts the same to an artificial sweetener that it does sugar. So it releases the same amount of insulin. It gets ready to start glycolysis to make ATP, but there's no sugar group for
Nothing
it
to
to
build
bind
off of.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then it doesn't actually do it.
Right.
And so it promotes weight gain more than weight loss. This is a cycle that we're getting sucked into, so that way we can have this obesity epidemic. That, oh God, I'm so like I told you, like this sugar thing, especially artificial sweetener. It's like it touches me. It really does, just because it's so frustrating that our society has lied to everyone. That's like, this is better for you. It's 0 calories, and it's a bunch of bull crap. And like, CrossFit is fighting big soda, and I love that. And it's just so bad. So artificial sweeteners are terrible. Stop them. I'd rather you eat processed bleached sugar, because your body's actually going to use it.
that,
Yeah. So
That's one thing real quick. While we have TC here, TC, you lost like 40, 50 pounds already, man. Is sugar something that you really noticed you cut out your diet that was hard to you?
It wasn't hard.
Wasn't hard? Okay.
No, it wasn't hard. I mean, it's really a mind thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's how much you want to do.
Yeah.
It's how determined you want to be.
Yeah.
It's how focused you want to drive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I come early and I stay late every day.
Yeah.
So I don't have to. I do it because my drive. I got a goal. I want to meet a goal. So sugar is bad. I mean, artificial is worse. But it's a mind thing. It's what you got up in here with. That's how it works with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like today, you saw when I came in, I was dead tired from getting out the bed. I didn't want to come.
And he was still here. He didn't want to come, and he still came. And I told him, I was like, well, you're here, buddy. I was like, let's do
I
it.
still came early, and as you see, I'm still here late.
Here's another question for you along with the sugar thing. You've got kids. Is it hard to keep the sugar out of the house with the kids? Because kids really fiend sugar.
Yeah.
They get it at
It's
school.
hard.
It's hard to get them off. That's the hardest part.
The
Getting
hardest
them off the
part
sugar.
is the kids and the family. Even like with me, with my dieting and trying to eat right, the hardest part with me is trying to have balance, because my whole family don't eat what I eat. because I'm trying to lose so much. So days that I consider cheat days are really days that I'm just having a dinner with my family and I'm not eating what I'm supposed to eat. So that's the hard, like if I fall off for a day or two, it's because I'm trying to do stuff with my family, and it's the hardest thing, especially when your family's on a regular, plan. And then me, I'm trying to drop so much, so I'm trying to cut out all the sugar, all the sodium. I prepare my meals totally different from what my family eats every day, and I don't want to drag them into, okay, this is what everybody got to eat. I don't want to do that because it's not right, and they don't have to lose like I have to lose. So, that's the hardest part. But sugar, of course, the kids. I mean,
kids.
And then if you're at an event and there's a ton of kids, how can you tell your kids, no, you can't have that?
Yeah. And
all the rest of the kids running around with it.
Well, we'll have to cover that in another different podcast. But balancing your dieting and your health with having a family and trying to get them to do the right things too.
I'm very passionate about that as well, and I always get the question, and maybe we'll talk about that in a different podcast.
Yeah, that's like a whole hour right there.
I always get the question of like, well, what about you're not supposed to deprive kids, or they need to be kids. Kids will be kids. Yeah, sure. We'll talk more about that later, but I have a lot of opinion, and I don't have kids.
And I just want to throw this out there. With my kids, they already do a lot of what I do because I don't eat red meat. Yeah. So my kids don't eat pork or beef.
There we go.
They may eat pork every now and then if they go to their nana's house for a holiday or something like that. Of course, they don't get a rib because they don't get it. Yeah. So they eat what I eat. So a lot of the stuff that my kids do is already on a light plan. We don't do pork or beef in my house. So.
And that's the gist of what we're getting at with that is as parents and adults, it comes down to education. It's not depriving. Don't deprive your kids. And I'm not saying don't give them zero, but it comes down to education and understanding of what's good and what's bad, and moderation as well. We're going to... So, sorry, I didn't like... Going off on a tangent, artificial sweeteners, absolutely not. I get a question all the time of like, oh, stevia, like... Whatever, I don't know what the heck this stuff is, stevia. What is this? So the way I feel about stevia, what is it called? Stevia? Stevia. See, I don't eat it, so that's how I feel about it. The way I feel about this is it is in between artificial sweeteners and sugar. So if you're asking me, the worst thing you could have is artificial sweeteners, and then stevia, and then sugar. I'm like,
I never heard of that.
That's the argument though, because if you get it in its natural state, the stevia leaf in its natural state can be sweet by itself. But now if you're getting the broken down processed stevia, that's different. Yeah. That's a processed food at that point, right?
Well, it is processed, and part of my problem with it is like, oh, it's natural, it's a plant, blah, blah. Cool. It's a 0-calorie sweetener, and it still causes the same response in insulin levels and starts glycolysis like sugar does. There's nothing for it to make the ATP out of. So people like ask me about this. I'm like, no. Why? And I always say, well, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Would you put water in your gas tank?
No.
Why?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because it's not that useful, right?
Because your car's not going to use it. So why are you going to put something in your body that your body's not going to use? Okay, so that's my answer on stevia is 0-calorie sweetener, right? It's not going to kill you, but why are you going to put something in your body that it's not going to use?
And add to that, a lot of things, a lot of people get it confused because they think a lot of stuff that's a plant, that's a natural plant, is okay. But you got to remember, cocaine's a natural plant.
That's right.
They don't make it okay. So,
Kilo.
Sorry. That's my dog.
Your child.
That's my dog.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. That's my dog.
Yeah. So I mean, and just because it grows in the ground or it's natural doesn't mean it's good for you. So like TC just said, the coca leaf, that's where cocaine comes from. It's natural. There's arguments. It's not good for you.
It's a processed food, though.
Marijuana, smoking it. We're not going to get into this argument, but it's smoking and it's not good for your lungs. Like, you can't smoke a ton of weed and have good lung function. It's just not, it doesn't go hand in hand. So even though it's natural or whatever, it doesn't mean it's really good for you. Segueing off of that, we're going to try to get out of sugar. We're already at 29 minutes. Things that are okay on paleo in moderation, it's like you get like a tablespoon a day, maybe 2 at the most, would be you can have 100% pure honey, or 100% pure agave, or 100% pure maple syrup as a sweetener. And like I said, it's like a tablespoon, maybe at the most 2 tablespoons a day. So you can't go overboard with these. So you can use those as a little bit of a sweetener when we're doing paleo, but they're discouraged. So they are allowed, but they're discouraged. So if you're somebody that has to have your sweets, like me, I put like half a teaspoon in my coffee of 100% honey, just as a natural sweetener, just because I like a little bit of sweet. So I put that in my coffee. So you can have these things just super low as far as how much you're having. And it has to be 100% natural. So like not your syrup that you buy on the shelf. Like Aunt Jemima, God bless her, she good, but
Hey, that's my aunt. Call my auntie, man. She do to you, dog.
right? But that's not 100% maple syrup. Maple syrup, if you buy it for a small thing, it's like $10, and that's how you know it's real, is because it's super expensive.
If you drink water, or else you're somebody that's trying to transition to water from drinking a ton of pop. Like I used to drink 6 Mountain Dews a day back then. I switched over like halfway through with iced tea. Just to let you know, iced tea does have a lot of sugar in it. You don't expect it like the peak teas. I forgot what the other one was. But
Brisk tea.
Yeah.
Lipton, all of them got a bunch of sugar.
Yeah, if you buy a canned or a bottle already, it's got tons of sugar.
Water.
But if you're a person that doesn't like water and how it tastes, because it sometimes can taste bland, there's also different types of water, kind of how they do taste. There's like Iceland water versus like
Straight
whatever
bottled water, yeah.
Great Value water at Walmart.
Some of it's nasty.
Yeah.
It is.
Some of it's
Just filtered tap water.
But if you don't like the taste of your water and you're always drinking it, you can always sweeten it up. You can always put like a couple blueberries in there or something like that, some natural fruits, or else you can drop a mint leaf in there. I did this.
Or lemon.
Yep.
Yeah, lemon
I
will do
love
it.
lemon in water.
I dropped a mint leaf, or like 2 of them in my water, ended up just kind of floating there, and then not much happened, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Push it down.
Oh,
Mash it up.
okay, I didn't do that. I just dropped it in.
Yeah, you try to make like a mint and julep with water. Though. But yeah.
And like drinking water, you can get creative. I don't know if you guys just said this, but like lemons.
Yeah.
And, like,
Lemons, blueberries,
cucumber.
cucumbers,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I
welcome
hate
back.
cucumbers. Cucumbers overpowered.
Welcome
me.
back.
I just went to the restaurant. Anyway, what's up?
Let's talk about coffee. Is there anything else you guys want to
So sugar, processed foods. The next on the list is legumes. What about coffee?
Yeah, go ahead.
Coffee can be consumed in moderation. Just remember, when you're drinking coffee and you love coffee, coffee's the healthiest when drinking black. There's about 34 calories per serving in there. Just realize that don't drink too much coffee. I drank like 2 bottles of 25 ounces before, and if I drink too much coffee, I get like these little kind of lines, these red little dots around my eyes a little bit, too much caffeine. So if you're drinking like a standard cup like this, if you're looking in the video podcast, you should be fine.
It's like 12 ounces.
Yeah.
Don't listen to them. I drink a lot of coffee. Don't listen to them. Just
No.
I drink about 2 cups a day.
Coffee's one of those things like fruit. It's in moderation, so it's like, yeah, you're allowed to have coffee, but just don't have a ton of it. So, you can have like 1-2 cups a day, maybe 3 at like the high end, but like just don't be drinking a ton of coffee. And the reason for that is not because it's low in calories. It's not terrible for you. Caffeine's not going to kill you. It's that it's a diuretic. It makes you lose all your water. Obviously, coffee makes you have to go to the bathroom, and it doesn't promote hydration of your body. So, we're trying to be healthy. Paleolithic people didn't really have coffee. They might have found like cocoa beans and like started eating them. I don't know what they did with those, but just not too much coffee in moderation.
2 things. One, if you don't like black coffee, try out some different types of brands. Folgers, kind of basic. There's this coffee that I get at King Soopers. It's called Kick-Ass Coffee. There's different flavors. I like that one. And also, second thing, what was I going to say?
Avoid. Go ahead.
Try not to put any synthetic things in your coffee, like creamer,
Yep, that's what I was
things
gonna
like
say.
that.
We already went over that. Dairy, artificial sweeteners. So if you're paleo, none of that crap. Let's we're running out of time. Let's segue into legumes.
Why can't you have legumes? You can't have legumes because they're not necessarily bad for you, but they're not good for you. They don't do anything good for you.
What is a legume? Like, what the heck is a legume?
It's
That's
a
the
bean,
weirdest word
dog.
ever.
It's not a
Beans.
legume.
Bean. All right, so it's like things that are like beans or come in. I guess a legume you could describe something that comes in a pod. So like peas come in a pod, or like your snap peas, or even peanuts. That's considered like a pod. So that's why you're not allowed to have peanuts, is because they're considered a legume. Peanuts are delicious, But relatively speaking, compared to the other nuts, their good fat to bad fat ratio is they have the most bad fat out of all the other nuts. So that's why peanuts are also a no, is because they're considered a legume and their bad fat to good fat ratio is much higher than your other nuts. Actually, the healthiest nut for you to eat, like as far as fat and good fat to bad fat, is a pistachio. But it's the most annoying one to eat because you got to freaking
They make you work for it.
Get out of that damn seed.
Make you work for it.
Or the shell.
You take the shell off of it.
So like that's legumes. You can't have them. Peanuts considered a legume. So any type, like no black beans, pinto beans, peas, snap peas, whatever that is, it's a legume.
What about green beans? Are green beans a legume?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Green beans. They're like, oh, it's a vegetable.
It's bean.
Green bean. All right,
Never put together those two words.
your black bean burger is not paleo. All right, so
this is why you see
it might be vegan. I don't. Sorry, we're not going to get into vegan. I don't know too much about that. Starches.
You have those. Well, basically, it breaks down to sugar. It's the same way that
it's like fruit.
Yeah, so we can go short on that
one. So like starches. And some people have this argument with starch on paleo because it's like, oh, sweet potatoes have starch in them, and it's like, yes, it's a moderation thing. So starch, if you're getting it like from your sweet potatoes, you're not technically supposed to have white potatoes on paleo. I think as they're starting to do, the paleo diet is starting to evolve because it's a relatively new way of eating as far as like our new like Western civilization. We put a name on it and all this. There's books about it. The white potato is slowly, I think, becoming a little acceptable, but for the most part, stay away from it. Starch, it's like you want to have, I'd say at the most, like a half of a sweet potato, or a half of a white potato, like per day. Like you don't want to go overboard on these just because of the starch content. Your body's breaking it down and using it similar to a sugar group, which can not promote the most weight loss. If you're trying, and it's different for everyone, if you're trying, to gain weight or muscle, your numbers are going to be tweaked a little bit, or maybe there might be a little bit more allowance of something and then take away something else or whatever. But for the most part, starches break down like sugars. We don't want to have really any or, little to none is what we're doing with starch. So sweet potatoes, okay, just don't go over. It's easy on paleo to go overboard on things that you are quote unquote allowed to have. So like fruits, your starches, the coffee, on paleo too, you can have, it doesn't talk about this, you can have dark chocolate that is, I believe
60% or more.
I thought it was like 60 or 70% pure dark cocoa or more, so like semi-sweet, and it's like, don't go overboard on that either, all right? Like, so it's like you can have like, if they come in those little squares, like you could have a couple squares a day, but like that's
2
it.
to 3. It'll calm that craving, but it won't make you go overboard and end up eating the whole Hershey's bar.
So like
dark chocolate is disgusting. So
yeah,
you're not gonna want to eat the whole bar.
If you get actual paleo friendly dark chocolate, it's called semi-sweet, but it's not really sweet at all. Yeah, like it's not sweet. You're not gonna something that you're gonna crave a ton. She's fine. Last one, alcohol. Why can't we have alcohol?
Sugar. It's sugar. It's sugar. It's made of grain.
Alcohol is like aged sugar. So that's pretty much why your body breaks it down like sugar, even like sugar alcohols. So that, and it dehydrates you, it's bad for you, plus like the repercussions, what it does to your liver, brain cells. Alcohol is just bad. In the ancient man didn't really have alcohol. They didn't know how to produce it. You had to have grains and like yeast to make beer or certain things like that. Yeah, so
fermenting. They
didn't have these, so no alcohol at all if you're doing paleo. So there's not a paleo friendly alcohol. You're like, oh, I thought this was paleo, or they have gluten-free beer. That's not paleo. If you really are like, be like, oh, like what's the best thing to drink?
Water.
Yeah, right. Water. White 100% agave tequila is technically the healthiest alcohol, but like healthy is a terrible word. Kilo.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, basically, just no alcohol. Just keep it simple, man.
Remember, if you're eating a bunch of dried fruits have a lot of sugar in them, and you can over consume them since they're so small. Like usually, you get some banana, dried chips, they shrink up. You're gonna eat like probably a whole bunch of them. Kind of like if you're eating, say, peanuts, so small, not good for you. But yeah, just remember, there's tons of sugar in dried fruits, more than in a normal fruit. And in paleo, technically you can consume in moderation. But just remember, there's a lot of sugar in it.
So you want to just recap, kind of, Joe, to recap the things you can't eat: no dairy, no grains, no processed food or sugars, legumes, starches, alcohols. Things to eat. You can, in moderation, obviously, eat your fruits. Tons of vegetables, tons of lean meats, seafood, nuts and seeds. Healthy fats. Your healthy fats are going to be coconut oils, your avocado oils, your olive oils, those kind of things. So avocados too, coconut, healthier, things like that.
Also consume in moderation your coffee, chocolate. I don't know if you said that. You went fast. Your stevia, if you end up using that.
Leaf, not the processed kind.
Yeah. Raw honey. Coconut water also. Alcohol. Any caffeinated teas.
Coconut water is a no, by the way. If you're on paleo and you're like, I can have coconut water or almond milk, right? Yes, technically, but if you're going to ask me, it's pretty much sugar water. So, like, if you look at the sugar content in coconut water or
high.
like your almond milk, things like that, it's high. So, like, we want to minimalize sugar or no sugar. So then, if you're eating true paleo, then you're going to stay away from those things.
Yeah. Also remember, coffee is bean water. Just let you know. It's just different.
It's what water?
Bean water.
Oh,
Yeah.
think about it that way, yeah. So it's a pod, yeah. It comes in the pod. It's a bean, coffee bean.
Coffee's a sensitive subject because
I love
so
coffee.
many people love coffees. Like
I'm
for me,
addicted, baby.
I like coffee, right?
Go check out Instagram for the picture.
Yeah. I mean, so we didn't get to talk zone, so like we only talked pretty much paleo today, which is fine.
We'll do another one for zone.
Yeah, it's one of the most popular ways of eating in CrossFit, so that's why we talk so much about it. But also, the reason why, you know, like CrossFitters or health people promote paleo is it helps lessen inflammation in your body. It promotes muscle mass and also helps with burning energy efficiently. So it gets you into more of a keto state. It's not ketogenic, but a keto state where your body's learning to burn fats better than burning carbohydrates, which is, in the last podcast, fat is a more sustained burn. It helps for the longer workouts or just a more sustained way of energy output, whereas your sugars just burn really fast.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Let's wrap this thing up. Let's bring it home.
So, this is episode 21, not 22, like Gob said it was.
In the beginning, I didn't even look. I was just messing around. Hopefully CJ don't listen to the beginning, otherwise, you know, whatevs.
What else?
And if you're listening to the podcast and you want to see that beginning part, listen to it on the audio version. Camera wasn't rolling at the time. Actually, if you want to see some funky dance moves, watch the video version. So there's a little bit different special stuff in both different versions of the podcast. If you want to watch the video podcast, we usually have some tutorials. We splice in there. You can find the video podcast at youtube.com/CrossFit Mob. So if you search CrossFit Mob, find our page, you'll see the latest version of the podcast. We're working on getting some sponsors for the podcast also. So if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, shoot us a message. You can also shoot CrossFit Mob a message. We usually will respond.
Oh, there goes the video.
There goes the video.
Yeah.
Also,
Sweet.
if you have any ideas for special guests, like you know anyone that's a professional in their industry that has to do with health-related stuff, doctors, specialists, things like that, let us know. We'll see if we can get them on the podcast as well.
All right, let's close this thing up, man. Where can they find you at on Instagram?
What? Oh. Yeah. My Instagram is StormtrooperAF. You can put together AF, what that means, if you know the acronym.
You can find me at Darker Than Night. That's KNIGHT.
And mine is The Gabriel Show.
And you can also find me at Game Ready Fit on Instagram.
You can,
NF Barbell.
for
Or-
Robs.
Gabriel at nfbarbell.com.
And you can find me here at CrossFit 6 days a week.
That's right. TC in here putting in work. All right, he is the example. Puts in
No
work.
excuses.
He's dedicated.
You can
He
find
wants
me
it.
here. Don't even go to social media. Just come here.
Sometimes I'm gonna get him the dough. I'm gonna bring him the dough.
Right.
Real life Facebook.
Also, you can find myself at CrossFit Retro on Instagram or Facebook.
And CrossFit Mob, obviously, as the main Instagram. We're looking right here, too. So
Yep.
good. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Catch y'all later.
Yep, yep.
See you next week.